Transformation Summit. Hello and welcome to this live session from Banking Transformation Summit, the in-person AI and transformation event built for banks. Now, if you work for a bank or a credit union, you can join us there on November the 17th and 18th in Charlotte. Now, I'm Mark Johnston. I'm your host for the next 30 minutes. In this session, we're discussing how fintech partnerships are transforming bank strategy. Now, in a moment, I'm going to introduce our expert speakers, but first a word for you and your role as our audience. We want to hear your thoughts, we want to hear your opinions, and we want to get your questions. Pop them in the chat, and I'll bring them into play throughout the discussion. Right, onto our panelists. I'd like to extend a very warm Banking Transformation Summit welcome to Chandra Warren, Chief Strategy and Risk Officer at Sharon View Federal Credit Union. Chandra, hi.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Great, thank you so much, Chandra. Thanks for joining us. We've got Deepa Chatterjee, SVP, GTM and Business Development at US Bank. Deepa, welcome to the discussion.
Hey, Mark, lovely to join you and looking forward to our discussion today.
Thanks, Deepa. And we've got Izge Cengiz Erkan, SVP, Director of Strategic Innovation at Valley Bank. Izge, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
And finally, last but not least, Jesse Schwartz, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Business Development, SVP at Citizens Bank. Jesse, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Glad to be here.
Great, and thanks to all of you for joining us live or on demand, wherever you are. Right, now, let's get straight into the discussion. Let's have some quick warm-up questions to get our panelists going, and you at home, wherever you are in the world, you can contribute to these as well. So pop them in the chat with what answers you think. So the first question I'm going to come to you, Izge, with is, in one sentence, what makes a great bank fintech partnership?
For us, open-mindedness on the bank side and transparency on the fintech side.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Izge. Chandra, your thoughts on that one? In one sentence, what makes a great bank fintech partnership?
I would say strategic alignment, understanding on both sides, right, what the end goal is and how to work together to get there.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jesse, in one sentence, what makes a great bank fintech partnership?
I would say a partnership that is properly commercialized. So it doesn't sit there, it goes live to customers and is rolled out.
Excellent. Thank you. And finally, to you, Deepa, your thoughts. In one sentence, what makes a great bank fintech partnership?
Partners who can communicate openly and honestly and help achieve each other's objectives.
Thank you so much, Deepa. And then our next quick fire question, if we can, if I reverse the order on this one, so Deepa, if I come to you this one first, what's the biggest challenge in collaborating with fintechs today? Your thoughts?
Biggest challenge in collaborating with fintechs is usually comes down to development timelines to launch.
Fantastic. And Jesse, your thoughts? What's the biggest challenge in collaborating with fintechs today?
I think it's similar to that. I think it's just upstream from that is like figuring out the onboarding process with fintechs, bringing them on board and kind of having aligned expectations across both parties.
Fantastic. And Izge, what's the biggest challenge in collaborating with fintechs today?
I would say the underestimation of the regulatory rigor we banks have to abide by. You can call it naivety as well, because move fast and break things don't really apply to banks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Chandra, what's the biggest challenge in collaborating with fintechs today?
I think I'm going to echo Izge because we talked about regulatory compliance and what it takes to get through that and understand that. But also she mentioned some, just enterprise readiness, right? Being able to understand who's on what base, what needs to move, when it needs to move, and are you ready for that?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Right. Panelists all warmed up. We're ready to go. Let's kick on. Okay, so the first question we've got, Izge, I'm going to come to you first for this one. So what fintech trends are leading in 2025? Izge, your thoughts on that one?
Sure. This year, we've been busy looking at fintech partners active in agentic AI, especially around fraud prevention, compliance, and the credit origination journey, how agentic AI can help the bank move the needle there.
Okay, fantastic. And Deepa, let's come to you. Your thoughts on that one. What fintech trends do you think are leading in 2025?
So there are two trends that are important to us as a bank. The first is that with the fintechs, we are very much interested in sort of continuing embedded finance, which is what the fintechs will bring us, is that you are there and you are able to insert your offering along the customer journey. And so embedded finance is definitely a trend that the fintechs help us realize. The second is, fintechs really help you think through the customer journey from a SaaS point of view. Typically, as a bank, as a financial institution, you tend to think quite transactional in terms of, like literally which transactions are happening and not happening. But the fintechs bring, from a customer lifecycle perspective, how to manage from a SaaS point of view, a data-driven customer messaging and communications approach.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Deepa. And Jesse, your thoughts on that one then, please. What fintech trends are leading in 2025?
Yeah, look, I think there have been several that we've seen. I think stablecoin has been certainly a big trend, obviously AI. But similar to Deepa, I would comment on open banking. So slightly different angle, I guess, than the embedded finance. But open banking is very important for us at Citizens. We released a unified open banking API. And I think the trend here is, and where at least I kind of see this going, is irrespective of what regulation happens in this space, open banking is here to stay. And the simple way to think about the use case is whether you're a consumer or whether you're a business client, you want to be able to access data from whatever application you use. And you kind of build from there. You could be doing transactions from that application. But I think we have to be thinking about that as banks is how do we best serve our clients where they want to be? And if they happen to be in a financial application, we have to serve them there.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much to our panelists for the question one. If you've got a question for our panelists, then do pop it in the chat and I'll see if we can bring it in during the discussion. Okay, so next question. I'm going to bring Chandra. Welcome to the discussion. I'm going to bring you in on this one first. Okay, so the next question is, how should banks prepare to compete or partner? Chandra, your thoughts on that one?
I think the first step is to establish the appetite and what you're solving for. I think from a smaller institution, we have to consider financial implications of what we're solving for. We also have to understand a roadmap, right? So strategically, where are you going? What are you solving for? So some of the things that I would consider is from a clarification perspective. What would you like to implement? How long does it take? What partners do you need to use? In most cases in our organization, we are currently partnering with fintechs. It's not necessarily competition at this point for us. So the partnerships is looking for, hey, we want to grow members. We want to get more established with the communities that we serve. How do we do that more effectively, right? Our first focus point was really just ease of use and looking for vendor partners that can make it, establish it easier for our membership to join, to open accounts, to do the normal things that we need to do. So what we look at is do what you do and do it well. So some things that we look for partnerships is just looking for the opportunity for what partner can we partner with to make it easier and faster to do business with us. And that's how we kind of focused our time and attention.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Chandra. Isgay, your thoughts on that one? How should banks prepare to compete or partner?
For us, the focus is really on the partner side. If we want to keep up with the speed of change with AI, the partnerships are becoming really vital for how we move forward. And that is a different muscle in the bank that we're actively working to strengthen. I think one of the biggest unlocks is this requires the right governance models. Obviously, bringing a fintech partner into the bank, we still need to go through the same rigor that we're subject to. But what we're trying to do is de-risk these partnerships with rapid experimentation and through our sandbox partnerships, leveraging either anonymized or synthetic data to get to the proof points faster. So we're not putting the fintechs through months of onboarding only to find out that this is not the right solution. So I think the speed of which we can get to the yeses or nos really helps with moving the partnerships along.
Excellent, fantastic. Thank you very much. Jesse, you've heard from two of your fellow panelists. Can I bring you in here then? How should banks prepare to compete or partner?
Yeah, I think the way to approach this is really approach it like a product development exercise. So start with what your customer is looking for. Like, what is it that you're trying to solve for your customer? And I think the next is like being very honest about what is in your core competency as a bank or not. Because I think across banks, and I think we've probably all been guilty of this, but we have a desire to just build things because we're like, well, we have capacity to do it and we have budget to do it. It's not always a good idea to build something just because you have the budget or you have the capacity to do it. So I think it's taking a very objective look at what is your core competency and what is not. And if it's not in your core competency, find a fintech that you can partner with. And folks on the panel have mentioned this, but your goal is to have speed to market. Like find a fintech you can partner with, get speed to market faster, and make sure you're getting the right product in their hands.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Jesse. Some agreement from fellow panelists there, nodding along, which is great. And Deepa, let's bring your thoughts in on that one as well then, please. How should banks prepare to compete or to partner?
So typically we at US Bank look at fintechs to partner with. And I will say that in terms of thinking through a successful partnership and building for success, we do all the things that you would normally do when you're trying to bring a product to market or a feature to market. Some extra incremental things that we keep an eye out. Number one is just engaging internally and with your partner, what their risk, legal, compliance, fraud mitigation, what all of those teams care about, and make them care about what it is you're trying to do. So typically we align with those teams in terms of what the opportunity is that we're trying to bring to market, why it's strategically important, what the entire company will gain from it. And then we also listen to what their concerns are and try to build into that, mitigating those concerns, build that into the product development. And the same goes with the partner. The partner also has obligations that they need to meet, and so you try to meet their risk, compliance, audit, fraud concerns along the way as well. That's the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing that I would say that also helps on the bank side with a successful partnership is making sure that you just keep an eye on what is going on with the fintech. So you keep an eye on what is going on in their industry. Do they have leadership or board changes? Did they lose a big customer? Are any new concerns starting to bubble up? And I think that's just the reality of being a good partner, is making sure you really understand what's driving the agenda and what's driving any issues at your partner so that you can solve for them early. Fantastic.
Thank you very much for that, Deepa. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 3. If you've got any other questions, then pop them in the chat and we can come to them. I see a couple of questions in there now, so we'll have a look at those in a second. But let's move on to question number 3. Isgay, I'm going to come to you first on this one. What factors are driving the rise of new finance and fintech hubs across the US? What's your thoughts on that one?
I know you're asking about new hubs, but I just want to say, being local to New York, I see the power of proximity to the fintech's customers, how vital that is. I feel like a lot of the best fintechs that we come across either start in the New York area or very quickly locate here, because that close collaboration helps both furthering their products, but also getting to the stakeholders faster.
Okay, fantastic. And Chandra, your views on that one then, please. What factors are driving the rise in new finance and fintech hubs across the US? Your thoughts on that one?
I think there's a lot of, I would say, tech talent, right? So the fact that we're more in a global environment and things are a bit spread out, I think it's some cheaper costs in different cities like Austin and Miami that's allowing for things to kind of bubble up there and to see more activity in those areas. And I think it's favorable places for the talent to actually live. So it's supportive of the growth in those areas.
Okay, fantastic. And Deepa, your thoughts on that one, please. What factors are driving the rise of new finance and fintech hubs do you think across the US?
I would agree with everything that's been said before. I think it has to do with the fact that people could go virtual during the pandemic. You want to be close to your customers. You want somewhere where you can have access to talent. And, cost of living is definitely part of it. I would also add that we have worked with fintechs who are in kind of banking hubs. And so I think that's another area where you can imagine that there's probably a lot of talent available. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, here in the US is one of them, which that doesn't sort of immediately come to mind, New York and San Francisco, but there is a lot of banking talent there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Great answers from our panelists. Thank you so much for this so far. Now, we're going to move on to question number 4, because I think there's a lot to be said on this one. So, as panelists, then you can go as far as you want on this one, I think, because everyone's got quite a bit to say on this one. So, Jesse, I'm going to come to you first if I can on this one. So, what are the hallmarks of successful bank fintech collaboration model? What's your thoughts on that, Jesse?
Yeah, I think there's several you can touch on here, but maybe I'll just hit on 2. So number 1, I think bring in your business leaders early. Like, what I mean by that, every organization, we all have different models. Like, I'm on a partnerships team, so we obviously engage with partners. Some organizations will source opportunities out of their tech team or out of their product team, but determine who the business sponsor is going to have to be for the initiative for it to be successful, and bring that person in very early. I've seen partnerships over my career where sometimes that person is brought in as an afterthought, and you're trying to scale a product. And if the business leader doesn't buy in, the partnership won't be successful. The second one, which I think is a hallmark I alluded to a little bit earlier, is commercialization and sort of everything after that comes after signing the deal. And I've just found this is often the hardest part of a partnership. So of course, it's hard to identify a company. Of course, it's hard to negotiate a deal, but I find that the hardest work generally comes after, where you're figuring out the product market fit correctly to try to market the product correctly. You're doing the sales training, and it's also like a lot of rinse and repeat on that front. So I find that really determines success. And I'll just highlight really quickly, there's a partner we're working with now called Navan in the travel space. We're excited about the opportunity, but where we're really spending the time now is figuring out how to coach the sales teams on selling the product properly, and really just spending a lot of time with the team on it. And so I think that's necessary.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Jesse. Isgay, let's come to you on this one then. So what are the hallmarks of a successful bank fintech collaboration model from your perspective?
For us, some of the most successful partnerships are products of design partnerships. So what I mean by that is we're matching an unmet need of our bank with the engineering and product building powers of our fintech partners. And like I said, we start with a bank need that's not met by one of our existing vendors or the solutions out there, and match it usually with a fintech that has solved a problem in an adjacent space and is looking to enter the area we need help with. And the result is truly a partnership that creates value for both sides. So as the bank, we have our problem solved, almost tailor fit to our needs, but we're doing it in a way that the fintech walks away with a product they can take to others, banks with similar problems, and they already have done some of the product market fit proof points, if you will. So it helps them approach banks of similar sizes. So really, what brings success to these design partnerships at the end of the day is openness of us banks with our true pain points, and then for the fintech to take the feedback they get from us and act on it quickly, so we're moving towards the end goal together, hand in hand.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Isgay. Deepa, your thoughts on that one, please. What are the hallmarks of a successful bank fintech collaboration model?
I think that in the end, it has to be something that achieves the objectives of both companies. There are usually KPIs that you align on. So program revenue, individual company revenue, incremental customers, incremental usage of sort of XYZ feature. Those are all typical common revenue driving parts of a partnership that need to be met. Sometimes you also engage in a partnership because it's strategically an area that you want to get into, or you need to add a particular logo to your stack, what have you. It has to achieve the objectives of both companies. I will say that there's also what makes something successful is it's one body of work to bring something to market. And then it's another body of work to make sure that you are addressing all stages of the sales funnel and getting a customer in the door and then successfully using the product. And so I would say being able to maintain momentum for both of those is very important to achieve the program KPIs.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Deepa. Chandra, your thoughts on that one as well, then, please. Let's bring you in. What are the hallmarks of a successful bank fintech collaboration model?
I think it goes back to one of my original answers around strategic alignment. Internally for us, we're looking at how do we compare what the resolve or the goal of this fintech partnership does to as it compares to our strategic pillars, right? So we're solving for member growth, we're solving for ease of use, operational excellence. What we do internally at our organization is we bring the leaders of most business units to the table in an operational excellence platform where we identify how does this improve what we do today? Does it get us to where we want to be? Does it help us grow members, engage our communities that we serve? And we go through this vetting process to make sure that the return on investment is worth, operationally how it changes the organization. And we kind of pick it apart. And then we go through and ask ourselves those questions. Is this going to get us to where we want in 5 years and 10 years? What's the roadmap like, right? So sometimes you don't want to plug something in today that'll be useful for a year or two. You want to make sure that it takes you through your journey for the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, you want a partner who also grows with you. I think the most successful partnerships we've seen is someone who has a product that brings it to the credit union with the intent to solve one of our problems or our goals, but also willing to grow with us and be able to be nimble enough to kind of change their process and their ecosystem to support some of our very specific needs versus being a one-stop shop for everybody, right? So we've seen the best and most successful partnerships is somebody who's willing to sit down, understand where we are from an appetite and a complexity perspective, but also willing to build out with us. And that's probably been one of the best partnerships that we've had, that relationship that can really take us from where we are very specifically and then take us to where we want to be and hold our hand through that process. So it's just been a beneficial relationship and a very successful relationship when we have those type of engagements.
Fantastic. That's great. Some great answers there from our panelists. I hope our audience really enjoyed those answers there. We're moving on to the final question we've got now. So I'm going to come to you first on this one, Jesse. Okay, so first question, this question is, how are banks managing integration, governance, and speed in fintech partnerships? Your thought on that one?
Sure. Look, I'll hit on two of those components. I don't want to get too into tech integration, but on governance and speed, I think the biggest things are develop a process in advance for bringing on partners. And I think this can sometimes be a miss, is like the process for bringing on partners can be very ad hoc and it can be different for every line of business. Develop a process in advance and do it with your stakeholders. And this should include your controls partners. I think we all get scared of controls partners because they could shut down our initiative at any time, but seriously treat them as partners that are going to help shepherd the initiative through the process and help ultimately get the product to market. And I'll just give kind of one example around this. I think this will hit on the point around speed, is we should all have a process for test and learn. So you might call it like a pilot, you might call it proof of concept or test and learn, kind of varies per organization, but define that process with your controls partners, because there's sometimes this perception that doing a pilot introduces risk. If you do a pilot properly, it should actually de-risk. Because if your alternative is rolling something out to like 1,000 customers or rolling it out to 5 very carefully and testing it first, you'd rather do the latter because you're going to learn a lot during that pilot process.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Jesse. And Chandra, let's come to you on that one as well. How are banks managing integration, governance, and speed in fintech partnerships?
I think Jesse hit the nail on the head when he had mentioned having a system or a process, right? Earlier in my answer, I mentioned our process of operational excellence and bringing all of the stakeholders to the table to be able to give adequate feedback about the impact to their businesses. And one of the partners that we bring to the table is the risk team, right? Understanding what's the risk, how does it impact our current appetites around some of our thresholds, and what do we do about those things if it starts to add risk to the organization? How do you mitigate it? How do you manage it? We have that process internally. And then speed, we look at, and I think Jesse hit it, right? When you go through testing, identifying how do you pilot this program? How does it work? How does it impact that small group of members or customers that you intend to roll it out to? And what changes do you need to make? And that's part of our normal process for bringing any vendor in, be it a financial vendor, a tech vendor, a marketing vendor. We put it through that rigorous process because we want all of the questions up front. We want all of the testing up front before we deploy. So I think that process that Jesse mentioned is spot on.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Deepa. Chandra, sorry. And Isge, let's come to you on that one. Your thoughts on that question then, please. How are banks managing integration, governance, and speed in fintech partnerships?
I'm gonna repeat a lot of what Jesse and Chandra said, really, especially on the governance and speed side. So on the governance side, we appreciate that for a full go live, yes, the fintech needs to go through the full governance process, but what does if you will, the smaller subset of that process could look like for the POCs and pilots we run, so that we're doing the tests faster. So we're actively working on what that governance should look like, and with, as Chandra said, with our risk partners, with our compliance partners. And on the testing side, we have a software sandbox as a service partner called Naya One that kind of provide us almost like a neutral space where it's a closed off sandbox where the fintechs can deploy, and we can bring in synthetic and anonymized data without touching the bank's infrastructure while we're doing the test and learn. So again, Jesse mentioned this, like we're looking to de-risk what a future implementation could look like and what are the areas we should pay attention to when we get to the process of bringing the fintechs in.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Right, so we're running quite close to time now. So I want to end the discussion, if I can, with another final quick fire question, if I can, for our panelists. So Deepa, I'll come to you first. What's one fintech trend we should look out for in 2026? Deepa.
AI. How are the fintechs using AI? Your risk team is going to ask you that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Deepa. And Chandra, your thoughts on that one? What's one fintech trend which we should look out for in 2026?
I would say probably financial concierge, right? I think I would say in a poll that I recently read, about 54% of Americans have communicated that they know very little or next to none about like personal finance and how to improve personal finance. So being able to deploy systems and automation that supports learning while also growing their financial health and wellness, I think that's one of the bigger things we'll start to see. We saw it in the investment space where you have robo investments and things of that nature. I think that's going to leak over closer to more personal lending and personal credit and things of that nature. So I'm excited to see that.
Fantastic. And Isge, your thoughts on that one? What's one fintech trend we should look out for in 2026?
Again, similar to Chandra's, for us, it's agentic finance. So what's going to happen when our customers start trusting agents to do their financial actions and taking decisions for them? And what does that mean for the banks in terms of discoverability and giving access to agents to act on our channels, right? So I think this will be a big theme next year.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Isge. And final word to you, Jesse. What's one fintech trend we could look out for in 2026?
Clearly, there's a theme here on AI. So definitely would be AI for me. I think what I'm excited, what I hope we see, a lot of the focus we've seen is like employee productivity. So deployment of kind of ChatGPT or Copilot across organizations. And there are sort of limited, at least in my view, limited client-facing use cases. There's, of course, like the chatbot use case. But as Isge just said, like I'm really eager for AI use cases that are client-facing. So use cases where we look at a transaction of a client and we're recommending the next best product based on a recent transaction or based on something contextual. I think folks are a little bit nervous around the client-facing use case, but I hope we see some of that in 2026. Definitely eager to see that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I wonder at what point AI won't be the main thing in these kind of discussions. So that'd be an interesting time, won't it? So thank you to our panelists. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to Chandra, to Jesse, to Isge, and to Deepa. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to you all for joining us. Thank you so much for that. If you haven't already, get your ticket for Banking Transformation Summit, where we'll be doing this all in person on November the 17th and 18th in Charlotte. Okay, banks and credit unions, they can attend for free. Thanks for joining us and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.